Before I tell you what happened, you need to know one thing. I never believed family could betray you until the day I opened that envelope. By the end of this story, you'll understand why I haven't spoken to any of them in 5 years. Growing up, my family always talked about loyalty. My grandparents used to say, no matter what happens, family comes first. I believed that with everything I had. We weren't rich, but we were close. Every Sunday, we'd gather at my grandmother's house for dinner. My uncles argued about football, my cousins played in the backyard, and my mom insisted everyone take leftovers home. Looking back, I realized I was in love with the idea of our family more than the reality of it. After my grandmother passed away, everything changed. At the funeral, everyone cried, everyone hugged, everyone promised we'd stay together because that's what grandma would have wanted. That lasted about 2 weeks. Then people started whispering about her will. I didn't care who got what. I had a decent job, my own apartment, and enough money to pay my bills. The only thing I wanted was the old photo album grandma always kept on her coffee table. It had pictures of every birthday, every Christmas, every family vacation we'd ever taken. My uncle smiled and said, don't worry, everything will be divided fairly. I believed him. About a month later, every family member received a letter from the attorney's office asking us to come in and collect the documents. When I arrived, everyone else was already there. Nobody looked at each other. Nobody smiled. The attorney handed each of us a sealed envelope. I opened mine without thinking. Inside was a copy of the will, and another letter with my grandmother's handwriting across the front. It said my name. My hand started shaking before I even opened it. The letter wasn't long. She wrote that she'd always worried what would happen after she was gone. She said she'd seen how greedy some people in the family had become, and she wanted me to know the truth if anything ever seemed wrong. At the bottom of the page was one sentence that made my stomach drop. Don't believe anyone who tells you I changed my mind. I looked up just in time to see my uncle staring at me, not with sadness, with panic. The attorney cleared his throat and announced there had been a last-minute revision to the will just days before my grandmother died. According to the new version, almost everything went to my uncle. The house, the savings, the land, even grandma's jewelry. My mom looked confused. My aunt immediately started arguing. Something didn't feel right. I asked to compare the signatures. The attorney hesitated. That was the first red flag. Later that evening, I took grandma's handwritten letter to a friend of mine who worked as a document examiner. I didn't tell him the whole story. I just asked one question. Does this signature match the one on the will? He studied both papers for nearly an hour. Then he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I can't prove it in court, but if I were you, I'd start asking very uncomfortable questions. That was all I needed. Over the next few weeks, I dug through old emails, medical records, and bank statements. I learned my uncle had been visiting grandma almost every day during the final month of her life. At first, that sounded caring. Then I discovered he'd also been taking her to appointments without telling anyone else. He'd started managing her finances. He'd even changed which lawyer handled her estate. Every answer led to another question. Eventually, one of the nurses from grandma's assisted living facility agreed to meet me for coffee. She remembered my grandmother clearly. She also remembered my uncle. According to her, grandma had complained several times that she didn't understand why people kept asking her to sign papers. The nurse thought it was odd, but assumed it was family business. That conversation haunted me. I brought everything I found to the rest of my family. I expected them to be angry. I expected them to demand answers. Instead, half of them told me to let it go. One cousin actually said, money tears families apart. Don't make it worse. That's when I realized something. Some of them already knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to stay quiet. Enough to protect themselves instead of grandma's memory. I hired an attorney anyway. The investigation dragged on for months. Some documents couldn't be verified. Some witnesses changed their stories. Nothing was ever proven beyond doubt. Legally, the case went nowhere. But emotionally, that was the end of my family. No one called me on holidays anymore. Birthdays came and went without a single text. I wasn't invited to weddings. When my grandfather passed away 2 years later, I heard about it from a neighbor instead of my own relatives.